What up, my dude? So I'm going to be talking about pre-made ruts versus eroded ruts. So yeah, seems like a lot of people out there just love to get the thought in their mind as if there was never even any sort of rut bump system to MX Simulator before the actual erode in the game. So many people out there just love to act like there was none of that, and it cracks me up. It's like, dog, just because they decide to personally not have most supercross tracks with ruts on them doesn't mean you can't put ruts on the supercross tracks, right? Like, we had plenty of that before Erode. They just chose not to put them on most of the tracks. And this is one of the old school supercross tracks that they actually did do that a little bit on. So you definitely can put any sort of rut, any sort of roughness that you can imagine in your mind on any kind of track in this game. You can do that. The only difference with that and Erode is it's not actually changing over time. But one really big difference between, see, some people out there think that like the eroded ruts and the erode system in the game is making like perfect ruts, or it's making the kind of ruts that you would get in a pre-made kind of rut track scenario, and it's just not. It's not even close to that. That's one of the biggest problems with it. You know, I feel like being able to go in there and actually make your own ruts and go in there and, you know, you can get a lot more kind of meticulous and small, tedious, and get the rut perfectly built versus where with the actual erode system, the terrain deformation system, it doesn't build it nowhere near as accurately to like a real life rut, and you can get it a lot closer to what you would think a real life supercross rut would be in the game with pre-made ruts. And on top of all that, you can actually go in there and kind of make different designs of ruts and all different kinds of roughness and everything to it, but it just doesn't change over time. That's only, you know, the only kind of different thing from Erode. So, I mean, in all honesty, like, how much does a real life motocross track really change in one race? I mean, how much does it really do that? Do you understand what I'm saying? That's what I always look back at the Erode system. Like, it'll go from having at least in the current pro racing with Erode, they'll go from a totally smoothed out supercross track to literal, like, trenches. Like, you've guys seen my, you know, Erode 100 videos and stuff like that, where I'm just got like a crazy high Erode on. It goes from like super smooth supercross track to totally trenches, dug down. Like, that is way too extreme of a change in terrain just within one race. It's way too much, man. But I'm telling you, even the motocross tracks back in the day had a lot of really good pre-made ruts to them. Like, they honestly did. And you can make the rut as deep as you want to make it. You can make it as like, let's see how you say it, is narrow as you want it, you know, like as tight as you want it, to where it's not like a berm. It's actually, you know, some of these 15 tracks, I think there's a 15 right here. Yeah, it is. You can see this right here. It's almost a little bit more like a berm than it is a rut, but you can go in there and make your own little small ruts, and that's the only way you can get that realistic where it's like 4 or 5 ruts in the corner, or 3 ruts coming out of a corner on a supercross track. You're never ever going to get that with the current terrain deformation system in the game, the current erode system. It's never going to be able to make it like that, where it's got like, you know, 4 or 5 ruts on a motocross corner and 3 ruts coming out of a supercross corner. It's literally impossible. It won't do it. So to all of you guys said, oh, well, dude, that's not realistic to not have erode on there. Dude, erode is so much more realistic. It's like, you idiot, if you would realize it's really not, because half the time, more than half the time, it's one-lined as a motherfucker. Like, it just makes one big giant berm in the corner, and it's not even making small ruts that you normally see on a supercross track. So it's not realistic like a lot of people are thinking, man. And a lot of people like to go in there and make the argument of, oh, well, you know, MX Simulator needs ruts. You know, it needs a rut system to it. It's like, man, it already has a fucking really good system of having ruts. They just don't change over time, you know. But the way you could do that, and they kind of started getting into this a little bit, is where you have multiple different versions of tracks, where you can go in there and have a little bit more of a smooth version than like a rutted version, so that the first moto is smooth and the second one's rutted, or qualifying smooth and then the racing is a rutted version or whatever. You can still get that kind of difference within the track within one racing night, just not every lap changing. And one really big problem with the Erode system in the game currently is, and keep in mind, everybody, I'm talking about currently, okay? They could fix this eventually. It's like, and a lot of people get that sort of confusion. Anytime I say anything negative about Erode, they like to take it like I'm saying, oh, there should just never be a terrain deformation system at all in MX Simulator. That's not what I'm saying, you idiot, you simple-minded fuck. What I'm saying is at its current state, okay, it's nowhere near where it needs to be. And that's what I'm saying is that's the problem, is the current system of building ruts in the game, like pre-baked, pre-made on the track. You're able to make twice as good ruts than the terrain deformation Erode system makes in the game. So that's what I'm saying. You're getting way more of a realistic rut experience when you actually have Erode turned off and they go in there and make pre-made ruts on it. So, you know, you can make ruts go into other ruts really well, and you don't have that bizarre effect where, in some of you guys that have raced with Erode, where the actual terrain will almost like splice together, where you'll erode a spot on the track, but it'll be almost kind of like the terrain is glitched out a little bit, and it's like almost like triangled, you know, and it creates this really, really weird feeling when you're actually trying to ride in a rut like that. But there are certain tracks that they had the Erode turned on. I think it was maybe Redbud 2018, and for whatever reason, the traction, the way they built the dirt, all the stuff on that track, the number that they had the Erode on that, I thought it was actually kind of good on that track. It, you know, it was fairly decent, but it still had its pitfalls. You know, I don't know, it just doesn't come close to that pre-made design, man, especially on the Supercross tracks. That's where you notice it like a mother trucker. It's just nowhere even close to how good you can make that. Like, you know how in real life, how you'll have those small, like 3 ruts kind of naturally gliding out of the corner on a Supercross track where you can actually get down into them and still hit the line after it. Well, a lot of times with the Erode on a Supercross track in this game, it'll just be one big rutted up berm, or it'll be totally jacked up, kickered out, you can't hit shit, and that's usually how it is. It's not like real ruts. That's the biggest issue with Erode currently. It just doesn't feel like real life ruts. Now, certain occasions they've captured it a little bit with the Erode system, you know, certain tracks, certain stuff, but very, very minutely, man. It's been very few and far between times I actually raced with the Erode and was like, oh, okay, that's decent. I never thought it was perfect. Never thought it was like really, really good. I just thought it was okay at times. You know, I was like, well, this is bearable, but 95% of the time it was just like absolute atrocious, you know, barely even rideable type of conditions, feeling like you're on a enduro cross trail track on a Supercross race. So yeah, basically that's the issue. But this is just a video to just tell everybody, like, listen, people, you can make ruts in MX Simulator without Erode. You can have sick as hell rutted up motocross, you know, mud rut, everything you can imagine, pre-made wise, in the game currently, and you could always have that before the Erode system. So that's really, I don't know. I mean, when you think about it, like one moto on a motocross track or one Supercross race, especially on like heat races and semis and LCQs, that shit ain't really changing that much. It's not. I mean, it's got to be a real specific type of dirt to do that, and it's nowhere near changing on the scale of like how it is currently with the MX Simulator Erode. Dirt just doesn't change like that, especially on hard packed. I mean, it hardly changes at all on like a hard pack type of track, and there's a lot of Supercross rounds that are more hard packy. You know, a lot of them do not have that 3 rut coming out of the corner vibe going on, but yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, it's just one of those things. It's a tough thing to get figured out. But I personally loved these sort of the few Supercross tracks that they did do the pre-made ruts on, I really enjoyed them, man. Thought it added a little bit of skill gap. You kind of had to tiptoe a little bit in the corner, but it didn't totally jack you up. You know, you could almost use the ruts more so than they hindered you. Does that make any sense to you? And you could even go smaller than the way they are here. You know, they're a little bit more berm style here. You could even go smaller than that and get them so much more precise than the Erode system does. Get them so much more exact like you want them and make the track so much more realistic. God damn, that's a hook. But yeah, I mean, and you can even go as far as, see this, oh my God, glad I remember this in my head. As you guys know, the Erode system in the game doesn't do hardly anything over the actual jump face unless it's angled, because it doesn't build a rut unless you're turning. So that's a really big difference right there. Like, you're not getting any of that rut going up a face, none of that. It's not really even changing the faces of the jumps too much. A lot of times it just kind of barely adds a kicker to it. Unless you have a rut that, like, or a jump right out of a corner where everyone's kind of turning up the jump face, and then it'll kind of make a rut in it. But for the most part, when the Erode's turned on, it's not really making any ruts going up the jump face. Whereas, like, when you got the pre-made ruts going on, you could literally build like 7 individual small ruts going up a jump face, and it would feel super realistic. So that's another big difference with it, man. I mean, it just so far outclasses what the Erode system can make on a track. It really, really does, at the current state of it, man. So either way, that's what I feel like they should go back to. Like, if they're wanting to, this next Supercross year, you know, like I'm saying, I think they should have a side series that's like the Erode testing series, but have the main series without Erode. But they can go in there on certain rounds and maybe add some ruts here and there, some cool inside lines, you know, that kind of stuff. Like this right here in particular, I don't know if you guys can see this very well, but look at this. You see this like 3 small rut coming out of the corner like that? It would never shape itself like that with the Erode on and be able to make 3 individual separate ruts like that. It just does not have the capabilities of doing that with the current Erode system. It'll either make one big one all the way around the outside, or it'll make like kind of this bizarre splotched where it's like not even really a rut. You know, it does one or the other. And what they kind of started experimenting with is that one track, damn, I can't remember the name of it. I know it got like insanity level. I'm talking literal trenches, like more ruts than a motocross track on a supercross track. You guys probably remember that one round that they tried to go in there and put like pre-made ruts on, but then did the Erode on top of it, hoping that it would, like, you know, kind of work better as far as making individual ruts, because you already had a pre-made rut, and going into it with the Erode on is kind of like amplifying it a little bit, right? So they went in there and did that, and basically, I don't know if they even, like, surely to goodness they tested that, but how the hell could they have tested that? And then it literally was digging, like, I'm talking mountains, dude, like trenches, mountains. Like, you had to go in first gear, and a lot of times that was too fast on the track. It was insanity. You're digging all the way down to the plywood where it was not even terrain anymore. It was insane, bro. But it was that one round where they had that little bit of pre-made roughness. I think, in my mind, right, they might have had a bit of the right idea going. You know, you could have a bit more of that pre-made rut system to it, even though it totally fucks up qualifying when you don't have Erode on and you got all those pre-made ruts, but they're like built for Erode. It's very bizarre. But basically, like, what a thought I had in my mind is you could go in there and have some of those smaller pre-made ruts like that, but have your Erode super, super low. I'm talking like hella fucking low, like, you know, in the 0.2s, 0.3s, not even in the 1 ratio at all. And maybe that would make more of that realistic where it'll actually grab you, but you're not starting with a perfectly flat track. And so, I don't know, man. The Erode, it's a mess, boy. Crazy moments, bro. It's just a mess and a half. That's the only way to explain it, man. And some people love it. It's kind of I don't know. Like, I'll ride with it. It's not like I'm honestly not a Erode hater. A lot of people think I am, like I just can't stand it. Oh, fuck that. I never want to ride with it. Oh, no. But really, it's more of I'm looking at the the game, like how many people have quit playing it since it's been implemented and how it was implemented and all that kind of crap. It's just done way more destruction than helping the game by a long shot, man. So that's what I go by. It's not so much like, I mean, hell, I'll ride on anything. I'll go out there and ride in a circle out there on a flat track. Like, it don't matter to me. You know, I am one of those firm believers in you better be able to win on any sort of terrain, because that's what motocross is all about. Whether or not it's rutted, whether or not it's muddy, whether or not it's sandy, flat track. You know, I'm the kind of firm believer in you should be able to win on anything, not just like a certain specific kind of track. But it just, my biggest thing though is with the Erode system is it just doesn't make the kind of rut you think it would or it should. It doesn't make the realistic rut feel to me personally. It just does not capture that. And it's got that like buggy effect, like I said, where it's almost like your wheels will get stuck in the ground because it's so V'd out in the actual rut. And it was so weird how it almost to me felt like it lowered the skill gap when they added the Erode on there versus raising the skill gap like I feel like they were trying to make it do. To me, it just lowered it because it slowed everything down. So instead of hopping on a supercross track and being able to hit, like, you know, if you're really, really good at the game, you knew how to get that perfect like throttle slide out of the corner and huck up on a jump and hit like a triple quad or whatever the case may be. Well, a lot of times you couldn't even do that with the Erode system because it built such weird ruts coming up the face of the jump, and it would weirdly kick her out the jumps to where you just couldn't hit the bigger lines, so everyone just slowed down. So basically, even if you're on a 450, you just started hitting the 250 lines like 2 or 3 laps into the race because the Erode had already jacked up the track enough to where you couldn't hit the big lines. So in a way, it slowed everything so far down to where it didn't even feel like you were going fast anymore. It just felt like you were a 450 rider riding at about like a, you know, an amateur 250 level or something. You had to slow everything down. So it's like, it was more about how slow can you go than how fast you can go, which it should never be like that. I mean, maybe just on certain specific tracks like a hard packed dry track or a mud track, obviously, but it shouldn't be like that for the grand scale of the series. It shouldn't be where it's the slower you go, the faster, like the slower you go, the better you're going to finish. It shouldn't be like that for the entire series, and that's personally what it felt like to me on the 2018, you know, Erode replica races. It was like if you actually try to go fast like you had to back in 2017, 16, 15 to win races, you just crash. You know, you couldn't do it. You had to go slower. So it was just like, to me, it just felt like that aspect of it went backwards. Felt like the skill gap was actually lower with Erode than higher. You know, I feel like the max skill gap is when you've got the pre-made, perfectly built pre-made ruts, and you can still hit bigger lines with the pre-made ruts because they're not totally jacked up like the eroded ruts can be at times. And that's where you get your true skill gap and still have ruts on your track. So either way, man, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.